We are driven by the search for better, so when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all, but it's to match with Indeed. If you need to hire, then you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. So ditch the busy work and use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so that you can connect with candidates faster. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And as listeners of the show, you will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/manifest. Just go to Indeed.com/manifest right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/manifest. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Very fitting with today's episode. If you are looking to create a brand or a service or a downloadable product or really anything, there are a few websites that make your life so much easier. And if you want to build an e-commerce business, the only place to build that e-commerce business, I truly believe, is Shopify. Nobody does selling better than Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet and the not so secret Shop Pay. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts are going abandoned and way more sales are going. So if you are into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. So upgrade your business and get the exact same checkout that Skims uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/manifest, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/manifest to upgrade your selling today. That's shopify.com/manifest. Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Manifest with Tori DeSimone. I'm your host, Tori DeSimone, and today we are talking business, baby. I get a lot of requests to talk more about the business side of things, how I opened yoga, spin, Pilates, fitness, boutique studios, lessons I've learned, experiences I've had, things like that. So today we are diving into the business side of things, of my life and of, my scope of work. So I love talking about business. I'm excited to get into this today. So let's just do exactly that. So this is business advice that I would give to anyone looking to begin a business, or even if you're looking to really get serious about your business. Maybe you have a side hustle and you want to make it your full-time career, or you really want to, you've been dipping your toes in the water, but now you just want to jump all in. Whatever and wherever you are in your business journey, these are some tips that I would give and pillars that I would build a business from. I really love like the 0 to 1 part of building businesses. That's always been my bread and butter. It's really fun for me. It's very creative, and I really like to hit the ground running and make things happen out of nothing and build things. So this part of the business is really fun for me. So I also want to just preface this episode by saying all the tips that I'm giving essentially have come from my personal experience, and my experience in business comes from 3 pillars. Number 1, in the fitness industry and providing a service of fitness classes to clients. And with that comes along, hospitality, building a brand, building a community, and then trusting your brand in the hands of other people. What I mean by that is like instructors, right? Like I'm not the one teaching every single class. So having other people uphold the Stride brand, which is one that me and my co-owner built, are important. So that's one avenue that I was looking at while I was scripting out this episode. The second avenue is social media, building a brand off of my name. It started with a username Backup 101, and then that became Tori Sterling, and now it's Tori DeSimone. So building a brand off of my name and off of my quote unquote face, not like aesthetic reasons of like, oh yeah, but you guys know what I mean by that. And then trying to build that brand beyond just myself and bringing it onto platforms such as YouTube, podcasting, Instagram. So if you're looking to get into like the influencer side of things, or you really want to bring your brand onto social media, that's kind of where this falls into play. And then the third are direct to consumer physical products. So I've sold planners in the past. While I learned a lot, and I currently don't sell physical planners, I do sell guides, download PDFs. I'll have them linked down below if you guys want to check them out. So some direct to consumer products as well. So those are like the three avenues that I structured this advice around. So yeah, let's just get into it. So I wrote down 8 tips here, and I'm excited to start. So let's begin. Number 1, write down your first initial idea. Now, as an entrepreneur and like a creative person, I tend to just get a lot of business ideas randomly, and they're always fun, and 99% of the time they don't go anywhere. But the 1% is what we have seen, right? And that's been Stride, that's been this podcast, that's been the YouTube channel, that's been the planners. It's been any endeavor that like I've put out into the world is that 1% of the ideas that I get. The other 99% of the time, it's like, this would be fun, or this would be a great invention, or this would be a great product, this would be a great business. I have $1 million idea, don't we all? But, it normally doesn't go anywhere. But the ones that do go somewhere, like I remember Stride, like what made Stride so pure and fun and interesting was it hit a lot of other things that I'm going to talk about in a minute. But when you have an idea that you really think could work, I want you to write down the idea right then and there, because that's when it is illogical. That's when it's pure. That's when it's authentic. And that's when it's fun. And it's really easy to have a great idea and then to present it to a group of people, maybe a board of investors, or to someone that maybe thinks a little bit more logically than you do. And immediately your idea can get picked apart or dismembered, and very quickly your authentic, fun, pure idea can become something completely different that you never intended for it to be. And the reason why I think it's a great idea to write down your first initial idea is because your first initial idea was probably born out of necessity, out of authenticity, and out of passion. And those 3 pillars are so key and so important to have a thriving business, service, or product, that the first initial idea can always be built into something. But once it creates a life of its own, it's really hard to get back what it was originally conceived from and why it was even a good idea in the first place. So even if your initial idea is like, you have a great idea and then it eventually grows legs and becomes something, always have it stay rooted in that first initial idea, because that's where the authenticity and the passion and the need for it came from. So always remember the initial idea, and it's okay if it's like a little bit delusional or if it sounds a little crazy, but try not to overthink the initial idea. Have fun with it, run with it. It really is what makes it special. Like I remember a few years ago, I had an idea about the fitness industry, and I still do. And I do think in my journey, I will fulfill this idea that I have, but it was really innovative and really cool. And I still haven't seen it done by anyone ever. And I don't see anyone doing it. And I don't even see it. I don't see anyone even thinking about doing it. So, I loved this idea. I wrote it down exactly as it was. And then I really got to thinking okay, how can this thing get legs, and how can it take off, and how can it become so-and-so? And very quickly, it turned into something completely different than what I even wanted it to be. And I scrapped it and I was like, okay, no, it needs to be this original idea. Because what it turned into is something that I've seen before. It's not the direction that I want it to go, but I understand how we got there, because it was logical and it makes money this way, and XYZ, all these reasons. But the magic was really in this original idea. So it's really easy to lose sight of your first idea. I'm beating a dead horse at this point. You guys get what I'm saying. Keep the magic in your first idea and build from that. Number 2, have a strong idea that you are obsessed with, and have that idea have a very clear path forward. In other words, have a really strong why as to why you're making this business, service, or product, and make sure that you love it. The idea that you have is going to become your life, like literally, especially if you're an entrepreneur. Your life is like your business, essentially. So make sure it's something that you genuinely enjoy and have a passion behind. There are many ways to get rich quick or to be an entrepreneur or to get in business. Like, there's no denying that. But I personally wouldn't invest my time, money, and energy into something that I myself wasn't passionate about and excited to build day in and day out. And that's how I've landed in the industries that I'm in, because I love doing everything that I do. And you really do need to be obsessed with what you do and have a very clear vision of why it is that you do what you do. And a very strong mission statement is a word that you hear a lot in business. Your why for starting is really, really important. And I will be completely honest, being an entrepreneur is not for the faint of heart. I do think that anyone has the capability to be an entrepreneur, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily for everyone. And even if you try, I commend you so much. It is difficult. Being an entrepreneur literally means that you are going to have the best days of your life and the worst days of your life, and those can happen in the same day. There was a week this past summer where on a Monday, I was having the best day of my career. I literally was on cloud 9. I was just like untouchable, unstoppable. I was like, it can't get better than this. And then 4 days later, that Friday, I was having one of like the top 5 worst days of my career ever. And it was all in the same week, all with the same business, all for like very, you know what, like that happens, and that's the reality. And what buoys you and what roots you and keeps you grounded in this whole crazy journey of owning and operating and running businesses and whatever is having a really strong why you started, why you love it, do you still like it? And sometimes it even helps to have an end goal in mind, because sometimes if it's just like, okay, I'm in it for, I need to pay bills, or I need to make a certain amount of money to pay this vendor, or whatever it is, having an end goal in mind of maybe you want to sell the business one day, maybe this is how you want to retire, or maybe you, I don't know, want to create generational, I don't know what your end goal is, but sometimes having an end goal in mind makes it a little bit easier and more worth it on days that are tough, because there definitely will be tough days. So have something that you genuinely enjoy and that you're obsessed with. And when I say obsessed, I don't mean like you're working all the time. I mean obsessed of like you genuinely have passion behind what you're doing and you want to better the lives of others through a product, service, or business. That's what I mean. All right, number 3, find the gap in the market and hone in on that. We don't need more copycats of products or brands or services or businesses. And we also don't always need the wheel to be reinvented, right? Like I'm holding a pen right now. This is a fantastic pen. I love this pen. And if I wanted to enter the pen space, maybe I would just find what it is that this pen is lacking and I would fix that. I'm not trying to like make a new writing apparatus. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with the pen, but what is the market gap in the pen industry that maybe I could contribute to? That's just a really shitty example, but it's an example nonetheless. We are driven by the search for better. So when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all, but it's to match with Indeed. If you need to hire, then you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. So ditch the busy work and use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so that you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't help you just hire faster. 93% of employers agree that Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according according to a recent Indeed survey. Like I mentioned earlier in this podcast, hiring is so important, but you need to really make sure that you are hiring the right people. And the place that I like to look for the right candidates is on Indeed. The way that it works is I put out a job listing and I write down exactly what it is that I'm looking for in all the candidates. And then Indeed sends me all of those people right to me. And it's so easy because I can review their resumes, I can review their applications that they send in, I can schedule my interviews right there, I can do it all on one site. It's so easy and it's so amazing. So leverage over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences so that the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And as listeners of the show, you will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/manifest. Just go to Indeed.com/manifest right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/manifest. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Very fitting with today's episode. If you are looking to create a brand or a service or a downloadable product or really anything, there are a few websites that make your life so much easier. And if you want to build an e-commerce business, the only place to build that e-commerce business, I truly believe, is Shopify. Nobody is selling better than Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet and the not so secret Shop Pay. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts are going abandoned and way more sales are going. So if you are into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling, whether it's on the web, in your store, in their feed, or everywhere in between, because businesses that sell more sell with Shopify. I love Shopify. When I was selling the Manifest Planners, I was using Shopify and they seriously made my website look so professional. Huge brands use Shopify like Skims, Gymshark, Magic Spoon, Chubbies, Aloe, like all of these giant brands that we all know and love all use Shopify because they are truly the best. And it's really cool that whether you're a billion-dollar company like Skims or you're just starting out, we all can use Shopify and they have the best converting rate. They have the best checkouts. It's just such a great platform and I couldn't recommend it more. So upgrade your business and get the exact same checkout that Skims uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/manifest, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/manifest to upgrade your selling today. That's shopify.com/manifest. Sometimes that could just be tweaking something to make it better. Sometimes it could be catering to a completely different audience than it's currently being marketed to. But nonetheless, find a gap in the market and really go after that gap. An example of this, and I'll use this example kind of throughout the episode. If you're a makeup artist and you really want to begin and get into the bridal space of bridal clients. Maybe your niche is that you cater to brides that want a really natural look on their wedding day instead of like the full bridal glam that we're kind of used to seeing. That would be an example of you're not reinventing the wheel of being a professional makeup artist doing bridal makeup, but you are catering to the niche of brides that want to look very natural on their wedding day. Another example is maybe you're wanting to start an athletic clothing line. Okay, great. We see that all the time. But maybe your product is that you cater to camel toe proof seamless leggings, which by the way, can someone please invent that? So there are so many ways that you don't have to reinvent the wheel, but you can find a problem in the market of a huge industry maybe, or maybe even a small industry, and just make it your own and just carve out your own space. I truly believe that there is room for everyone in business, but really knowing your market and finding the gap and going for it is where you're going to find success. Which brings me to number 4, which is probably the one that I'm most passionate about, which is know your audience. Know your demographic, know who you are selling to, know who you are providing to, and know who you are speaking to. Now, this is one that not everyone is going to agree with me on, and that's actually kind of like what I'm saying about this whole thing in general. what I put out, whether it's my businesses or my products or even my brand, it's not going to be for everyone. While I would like to think that anyone can stumble into my business or across my products or on my social media and think that, they could have their lives bettered from whatever I'm putting out there. I also know that it's not for everyone, right? And I can't be for everyone, because the second that you stand for nothing, you fall for everything. And I see this a lot where people try to be the brand for everyone. And that's just not the reality. You're just not gonna be. So really know who it is that you want to attract into your brand, into your products, into your service, into your business, and really make that product, service, whatever it is, so amazing for your specific clientele that you're untouchable in your space, right? For example, my planners, I made manifest planners and they were very thick. They were these giant planners. They were 500 pages. They were huge planners. They were for a very specific kind of person, and I made them with myself in mind and those specific kinds of people in mind. I made planners that were for type A people that were super organized and that believed in manifestation. They wanted everything written out. They wanted routines written out. They wanted meal planning. They wanted weekly prepping. They wanted daily spreads. They wanted a journal. I knew exactly what I wanted in the planners, and I knew exactly who my customers were. Now, did I get feedback that the planners were too big or too heavy? Yes. But did I also get feedback that the planners were perfect? Yes. I really wanted I wanted the planners to cater towards a certain type of person. And the people that loved the planners were for the people that the planners were intended to be made for. Now, if I listen to other people of oh, I wish it was more portable. I wish it had lesser pages. That's great. There are planners out there that are more portable and that have lesser pages and that aren't as detailed. And those companies, they do amazing. I don't want to tap into their space. I saw a gap in the market and I tried to fill it with my own product. And I knew my audience, and those that loved it, loved it. And I didn't care to really change for the people that the product wasn't made for. Now, here's where I will change. If the feedback from the customers that the product was made for was negative or they wanted changes to it, then I was open to it, because that's the people that I'm trying to service, right? But the outside noise of people that I wasn't making the planner for in the first place, if they don't like it, that's fine. It wasn't made for you. But the people that really wanted that specific type of planner, when they had feedback, that's when I listened. And again, if you stand for nothing, you fall for everything. So know your audience, know that you can change your brand, your product a million ways to please everyone else. But at the end of the day, you're just going to lose the plot if you're constantly changing your business, service, brand to be the brand for everyone. You're never going to be the brand for everyone. You're never going to be the gym for everyone. You're never going to be the service for everyone. And at the end of the day, you just have to be okay with that. There are days where it's a tough pill to swallow, but if your demographic that you are trying to service is responding well and you are doing well, why change? If the target audience that you want to hit, you're not hitting it and they're not responding well, that's when you can open up to change and feedback and, what can we do here to really hit the audience that we want and to be the best business that we can. I always think you should listen to feedback, but from the correct audience is really where you need to kind of carve that out. So again, not everyone's going to agree with what I'm saying, but that's okay. That's okay. So for me, I know who I want to cater to, whether it's this podcast, for example, Joe Rogan is not going to love this podcast, right? He's just not, and that's okay. I'm not catering to Joe Rogan. But if the girlies were Tori, you're kind of losing us a little bit, that's when I would listen. Does that make sense? So I know who to cater to, and I cater to my people, the customers, the clients, the best I possibly can. And of course, I'm open with feedback, but just because I get feedback doesn't mean I have to change the way that I do business because a few people don't like it. If my target audience is happy, then I'm good to go. Number 5, branding is key. King, I should say. Branding is king. I was talking to a friend the other day who was like, so like, what exactly is a brand? And I was explaining to her, a brand is if you were to look at a person, like let's say someone's personal brand, if that person were to write a book, what would they write about? If a certain brand, like if L'Oreal Paris was to write a book, what would that book be about? If Canon Cameras were to write a book, what would that book be about? If Tori DeSimone were to write a book, what would that book be about? That is what your brand should say. If you cannot explain your brand, your service, or your business in 5 words or less, you need a stronger brand identity. Yes, colors, fonts, logos are all very important in the visual identity, but when someone is looking at your website, your Instagram, your services, your products, you as the person that's behind the business should be defining the consumer's vocabulary, right? Like when someone says, I'm trying to think of a brand, like BPN, for example. If someone were asking me like, what is BPN? I would say, oh, it's a supplement brand for endurance athletes. I think that's pretty spot on. I would also think of other words like go one more, hybrid athlete. I would also think daring and bold. And I would argue that all of those terms that I just used, BPN has fed to us as consumers of their content or just like followers of their brand for a long time. And those are ideas that they have put in our head. That's vocabulary that they have put out there that I've adapted. I'm like, yeah, you know what? That does align with their brand based on their actions, based on their vocabulary, based on the visuals that they put out, based on their mission, based on their products. So make sure that your services and your brand really speak for themselves. Going back to the bridal makeup artist that specializes in natural makeup, when someone mentions your name, I want to think, oh yeah, they do natural bridal makeup. When I have a friend that's like, oh hey, do you know someone that like I have a friend that's looking to get married and she wants to look like herself on her wedding day. Like, do you know any makeup artists? I would then recommend this person. If someone was like, hey, like I have a friend that's getting married, she wants to go like full glam, I would recommend a different person. That's kind of like the brand. You want to build a strong brand and a strong reputation at dominating your space, dominating your niche. So really spend some time developing your brand. Naturally, it might change and evolve, and this happens all the time. We see rebrands happen for a reason, and sometimes they can be really awesome if they're done right. But having a really strong brand identity is so, so important. And this goes back to number 2, know your why and know your mission. You need to have a strong brand identity. So really take some time building that. Okay, number 6, build a team around you. Now, being an entrepreneur, I have a team of employees. And then when it comes to stuff like this podcast or my Instagram, YouTube, I would consider myself more of like a solo entrepreneur. But that doesn't mean I still don't have a team of people around that help to bounce ideas off of, things like that. So you could take this on a scale of like employees versus another way that I'm about to explain in a minute. But regardless, you want to build a team around you. Even if your team is just friends and family to like, hey, I have an idea. What do you think of this? Or do you have any ideas that could just make my business better? Or when you see this, what do you think? You know, things like that. I just think it's really nice to get an outside perspective. Just make sure that the outside perspective is one that you value. Kind of goes back to number 4, know your audience. But definitely just have a group of people that you can trust. A lot of businesses will have what's called a board of directors. I think board of directors it's a really great idea. We can talk about that another time, but it's always good to have. I think another thing that you should always have on your side is a lawyer, not necessarily for like anything, wild, but I just think it's always good to have legal in your corner. Just to look over things that you're signing or just to get advice from. And obviously, yes, you're going to have to pay lawyers. Okay. And it might be expensive, but it's definitely worth it in the beginning to have good legal guidance and counsel, just so that you are being smart along the way. Even if you're just starting out, it's just always a good idea to have a lawyer. I personally also have like a CPA and an accountant. I would be lost without both of them. Because, there are things like when I get a contract or I get an agreement or whatever, I always send it over to my lawyer because I want to make sure that whatever I'm signing is good. And it has myself like taken care of and like in my best interest. And I don't know a lot about tax laws, but my CPA does. So I always refer to her with, taxes and stuff like that. And it's been really great to have her in my corner, and I've learned a lot from her throughout the years. And she always just makes sure everything is very, very legal. And, the IRS is scary. You don't ever want the IRS against you. So I always made sure that I just have a lawyer or CPA or like finances, stuff like that. Like you just want to make sure that you have the right people on your team. It also helps to have a therapist, just someone to vent to. Sometimes business can get hard, and it just really, really helps to have a therapist to talk through things with. Whether it's someone that definitely knows like all the ins and outs of your business or someone that's completely removed, I just think it really helps to talk to someone, and that is someone, on your team, and like your mental health matters. And I just think it's awesome to have a therapist. I also think it's really great to surround yourself with friends that understand kind of the work that you're in, even if they themselves aren't business owners. Maybe you can find a group of other business owners, or maybe women in business if you're in business, or if you're in graphic design, other freelance graphic designers or something like that. Just other people that understand. If you're in a relationship, making sure that your partner understands what you're going through, things like that. Like it just really helps to feel understood, because being in business can sometimes feel lonely and like you're on your own little island, and sometimes it's hard to relate to other people. So having people that understand you, speak your language, and kind of understand what you're going through is definitely a good way to build a team of support around you. You can do a lot alone, but you can do a lot more with the right people in your corner and on your team. And you can really grow and scale once you build the right team around you. A piece of advice that I heard that is not fun, but is good advice, is you have to get good at hiring and even better at firing. Now, yes, when it comes to hiring, there are places like Indeed. I've used Indeed to hire in the past. I love word of mouth references. I love, LinkedIn. Like there's tons of ways to hire great people. And, in interviews, people normally put their best foot forward and get good at hiring the right people, but you have to get better at firing. And firing is really, 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 really difficult. It never gets easier. And sometimes most of the time when you have to fire someone, at least from my experience of firing people, the only time that we get to fire someone is when it absolutely has to happen. Other than that, there's no need to really fire someone. Like if they don't need to be fired, why would you? You know what I mean? So it only happens when absolutely necessary, and it's never fun. It's extremely uncomfortable, but it's extremely important. And I'm not going to get too deep into this today, but get comfortable with the uncomfortable. It's really challenging. It's really, really tricky, but you will be so much better off in the long run when you fire the wrong people. It only takes one bad apple to spoil a whole barrel of apples and make the whole barrel rotten. So be good at hiring, but better at firing. And lastly, if you don't have the money to hire the right people, try to make your skills or business pay for your growth. What I mean by that, Ryan Serhant said this really well, and he said this like multiple places on the internet, so I can't like pinpoint the one place that he said it, but he said it a lot. When he wanted to get a driver, the reason he wanted a driver was so that he could not miss out on business opportunities, right? Like he could take more calls, he could answer emails, he could answer texts, he could work while he was driving places. So he wanted to hire a driver. Well, in order to afford the driver, he had to sell, I think he said like 6 more properties in a year. So he hired a driver and worked extra hard to sell the 6 extra properties, and then the driver was paid for. And he did that. And he's continued to grow and scale based on that mentality. And I think that's a really great mentality to have. Like if you are selling pens, for example, I just keep holding a pen, so I'm just going to use this example again. If you're selling pens and you want to make a new pen and whatever, but you want to hire someone to come on and do the social media for your pen marketing, okay, great. How many more pens do you need to sell to afford that person's positions? So let your business pay for the growth of your business as well. That will mean that you have to, grind a little bit harder in the beginning, really like push the hours, push the sales, like do what you need to do. But in order to grow, let your skills or let your business pay for the growth. And make it happen. I do think it's worth it. And if you do have the money, awesome. I definitely think delegate out when you can and grow your team with the right people. But if you are like a solo entrepreneur and you need money to bring on a position, get creative and think like, okay, how many more lash sets do I need to do? Or how many more products do I need to sell? Or how many more classes do I need to fill? Like there's ways to let your business pay for the growth of your team. Number 7 is plant the seeds today. This has been a big one that I learned this past year, I would say. We see the success of businesses today that started 10 plus years ago. When I think of really big companies, they are not the companies that started less than a year ago. They're not. It's very rare to see businesses succeed overnight. And even if it seems like they haven't. Like, for example, Sabrina Carpenter is a brand and she is a business. And she started 10 years ago and she's just now like really hitting her stride and like getting her big break. That's incredible. But she started 10 years ago. And I'm sure she even started, and that was only when she was on Disney Channel. Imagine all the work that she had to do before that to get onto Disney Channel. You know what I mean? It's really easy to look at big companies and think, oh, they got there overnight. They didn't. I talk about BPN a lot because I think it's a great company. Nick Bare has built a really great company and a really great team, and he has really great products. And it's easy to look at his company today and be like, well, they have a giant team, they have a giant content team, they have all these great products. But when you look back on his story that was over a decade ago when he was starting BPN in the military, like out of his dorm room, I think the story is, or something. It's a really incredible story. And we've been able to watch the whole thing be documented online, which is really, really cool. And it's a massive brand with massive success, but that's because the seeds were planted 10 plus years ago. So if you get anything from this episode, begin to plant the seeds today and just begin. I truly think that success is built off of consistency, and it takes time, and you need to be patient, and you need to water your seeds every day and show up just 1% better every single day to your business and to your company, and just very slowly, brick by brick, chip away at it and build something really, really great. But start today, plant the seeds today, and just begin. If you are someone that's like, I really want to begin, but I don't know where, that's where I love the consulting part of business. So if you're interested, like I'll leave info down below, but I'm currently getting my website redone to take on more consulting clients. But I love the 0 to 1 phase of starting businesses and things like that. And one of the things that I offer is like custom business plans for people that have ideas and they just don't know where to start. I specialize typically in the fitness space, but I can help with any other custom business plans too. But anyway, that's besides the point. Last piece of advice that I have for you. And this is a quote from Mel Robbins that I love. And it says, your social media is not for your friends. Your social media is for you, your self-expression, and your dreams. I love this quote, and I really want you to utilize the free tools that you have. Social media, while it's a giant pain in the ass and it's not always my favorite thing in the world, it is a really great free tool to get your craft out there. And you really shouldn't worry about what your friends think, because that's like living your life for their constant approval. And do they live their life for your approval? Like, it's really no different if you are trying to grow your personal Instagram into, let's say, like a fitness Instagram account, and you're afraid to post like a dumbbell workout at the gym because you're afraid of what, I don't know, like Joey's going to think about it. Are you going to call Joey up and be like, hey, like, what do you think about if I posted this? Like, they're probably going to be like, I barely know you, number one. And number two, I don't care. Like, it's very weird to post and think like, oh, I wonder how this is going to be perceived. Now, look, I do this a lot. Like, I do get the fear of perception. I still struggle with it very, 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 very frequently. And I think posting on Instagram is a little bit scarier because it does feel like you're putting stuff out to friends. Whereas on TikTok, it feels like you're kind of just putting stuff out to the whole internet, and whoever finds it, finds it. But when it comes down to it, if it's you or me, babe, like, I'm going to pick me every time, and I'm going to build my life for my self-approval, regardless of what you, which is a very, umbrella term, think of it. You gotta just post and ghost, and remember that your social media is for you and your self-expression and your art and your craft and your business. It's not for your friends. And it's like your own little portfolio. So really hone in on social media. It is so cool and so important, and it's a completely free tool that can change your life. So yes, while it is annoying and there do need to be boundaries around it, and I'm happy to make an episode about that, it's a really cool piece of business that we have that we didn't have, 15, 20 years ago. So those are my 8 pieces of advice and lessons that I've learned through experience in business and in entrepreneurship. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode today. Remember that on my Instagram at Tori Sterling _ every Wednesday, I have a mini manifest episode. So go check that out. I hope you guys like it this week. Thank you guys for listening. Be sure to follow the podcast, rate it 5 stars. And yeah, I guess that is it. I love you guys. I will talk to you all next week, and have a great rest of your week, guys. Happy Manifest Monday. Bye.